The Suicide Squad has finally arrived, and there's a lot to break down in James Gunn's latest superhero outing. There's plenty of gore, deaths and events in DC's latest film, and I'm going to be explaining all of it, including the plot, the ending, and the post-credit scenes, giving you a rundown of what happened in the action blockbuster. This analysis will also contain spoilers, so if you do happen to be someone who hasn't seen the film yet, then I would recommend watching this video after you've seen it. But if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content on DC's latest films, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into the Suicide Squad Explained. So DC's The Suicide Squad is a quasi-sequel to the studio's 2016 Suicide Squad movie to such an extent that it brings back some of the actors and characters and doesn't retcon any of the events that happened in the previous film. In particular, it's all centred through the vision of James Gunn, who delivers an absolutely bonkers take on the team with exciting reveals and moments surrounding the life or death of certain members. The events of this new entry follow two separate incarnations of Task Force X. One is led by Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag that includes Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang, Nathan Fillion's TDK, Pete Davidson's Blackguard, Michael Rooker's Savant, Sean Gunn's Weasel, Mongol, Javelin, and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. And another is led by Idris Elba's Bloodsport that includes Daniela Melchior's Ratcatcher 2, John Cena's Peacemaker, Sylvester Stallone's King Shark, and Polka Dot Man. Both teams are spearheaded by Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, who tasks them with travelling to Corto Maltese in order to destroy something called Project Starfish. But when things get out of control and the gigantic alien Starro is unleashed, it's up to a bunch of criminals to save the world from the conquering invader. Before we can get to that battle though, we have to recap the events that lead up to it, and well, these include a lot of deaths, some predictable and some unpredictable. The film starts off with Johnny Cash's song Folsom Prison Blues as we're introduced to Savant bouncing a ball around his concrete enclosure. He kills a bird in the corner of his cell with the bouncing ball before being interrupted by none other than Amanda Waller, who convinces him to join one of the two teams she's putting together. Just like we saw with the other characters in the first movie, she gives him the neck bomb and lets him meet his team, which includes Boomerang, Mongol, Weasel, Blackguard, Harley, TDK, Javelin, and Rick Flag. They're all loaded onto one helicopter and build some well-needed chemistry with each other before getting dropped off in Corto Maltese, where they're instructed to invade the beach. Right from the get-go, Weasel seemingly drowns upon being dropped into the ocean, and the team need to compose themselves for what's to come on the island. But as the team steps onto the beach and prepares, Blackguard steps out, revealing that he sold the team out as lights come on to reveal that they're all surrounded. Despite their deal, Blackguard's face gets shot off in the beginning of a gory scene as the military begin firing upon the squad. Most of the team predictably die, with Mongol taking down a helicopter and burning alive in the crash, Captain Boomerang also being killed by the blades, and Javelin is riddled with holes before doing much of anything. But the gruesome scene begins to come to a close when TDK harasses soldiers with his detachable arms before they continue to fire at the rest of the team. But as Savant looks on at the carnage, he loses his nerve and starts to flee into the ocean, causing Waller to detonate the bomb in his neck. While this happens, Harley picks up Javelin's namesake as he tells her to use it for a reason he fails to explain as he passes away, and this comedically annoys her. She's quickly surrounded though and taken prisoner by the army, while Rick Flag is the only one who apparently survives and flees into the jungle. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the island, Team B, which includes Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2, Polka Dot Man, King Shark and Peacemaker, arrive at a deserted beach military encampment. Bloodsport asks what the deal is, while Waller simply says that the military was distracted. We cut to 3 days earlier, and you'll find the film does this quite a lot in a surprisingly successful way, with Waller making her offer to Bloodsport to join Task Force X. He refuses before going to see his daughter, who visits him at Belle Reve, and the two have a clearly strange relationship. She tells him that she stole a watch, and Bloodsport gets annoyed that his daughter stole something so stupid. The two have a cursing match until his daughter tells him that Amanda Waller said that he could help with an impending court date. He then talks with Waller in her office, indifferent to his daughter's court date, until Waller says she can be tried as an adult and will get sent to Belle Reve, strongly alluding to her eventually being killed in the prison. Bloodsport is of course furious and nearly kills Waller before agreeing to the mission, wherein he's taken to meet his team and the audience is introduced to them all. They're briefed on their mission to destroy all evidence of Project Starfish and given the name and probably location of the thinker as a way to get into Jotunheim. So already we've got a mix of familiar elements from the previous Suicide Squad movie, but ones that have been given more room to breathe, and the creative freedom that James Gunn was given is evidently paying off. But we cut back to the present day as Bloodsport and the team notice a nearby explosion, presumably from Mongol's helicopter stunt at the beginning. They start their trek through the jungle at this point, setting up camp where Polka Dot Man throws up, well, polka dots, and Ratcatcher is nearly eaten by King Shark. She forgives him and offers to be his friend, but there's clearly no time for these problems to become priorities, as Rick Flag has been captured by a group of rebels led by Sol Soria, and the team is alerted of this. They are given the new objective of rescuing Flag, and the next day, they arrive at his location and massacre a crazy amount of rebels. King Shark eats a few of them, while Bloodsport and Peacemaker have a pissing contest over how many rebels they can kill in the most creative ways. They only discover that the rebels weren't enemies after meeting with Flag, who had been having a cup of tea with Sol Soria. But despite the massacre of her compatriots, Sol agrees to a deal with the devil to help the squad out. This whole sequence is probably my favourite scene of the film, as it highlights brilliantly how the team are villains and that we really shouldn't get too attached to them. It does so with a blend of comedy and darkness that just fits the film so perfectly. But it's also here that we start to get some exposition from Thinker, Suarez and Luna about Starro, before Luna asks to see the captured Harley Quinn. She gets a makeover and is brought before Luna, where he reveals he loves her for her continued defiance against America. The two have a weird sex scene montage where he soon after explains how he intends to use Starro against dissidents. Harley cuts the moment short, however, and shoots him, citing her intolerance of red flags and unstable men before being captured by his guards. Cutting back to Bloodsport's team though, the gang meet up with their driver Milton before being driven to the gentleman's club that the Thinker is currently taking residence at. On the drive, Ratcatcher asks why Bloodsport is so afraid of rats, and after he implies that she has daddy issues, she goes into her origin, where she talks about how her father made her torch technology, but ultimately succumbed to his devices, overdosing on drugs. After she says her father loved her, Bloodsport explains that his father locked him up in a box for 24 hours with starving rats as a punishment. It's the needed chemistry between the surviving team and moments that make you care for the characters in the life or death moments we see that follow. But while this happens, General Suarez has figured out that there must be more Americans on the island after recapturing Harley and backhandingly lamenting the death of Luna, calling him too much of a romantic. The gang do make it to Finker's club though, where they drink and bond a little more, waiting to capture Peter Capaldi's character. After Bloodsport does reach him, however, the army show up looking for the Americans. Flag, Bloodsport and Peacemaker give themselves up while Ratcatcher and Polka Dot escape through the back of the club with Finker in tow. The 3 detainees do manage to escape from their captors' trucks in a cool action scene to the Rain song from the trailer and meet back up with the team. But on the ride, Flag discovers that Harley had been captured and orders the team to go save her before heading to Jotunheim. As we saw in the trailer before, while the team mounts their escape plan to rescue her, Harley breaks free from her torturers and has an incredibly choreographed action scene where she massacres a bunch of soldiers and escapes. She does so by picking up the Javelin that the character of the same name gave her, fighting her way out and hailing a taxi before noticing Rick Flag on the street. The two meet again and the gang finally go off to Jotunheim. After storming the front gate, the squad separates into teams with Finker, Flag and Ratcatcher descending into Jotunheim to find out what Project Starfish is, while the remainder of the team, with Milton tagging along, planting explosives to destroy the building. But in the midst of this growing conclusion, a few reveals are about to come to light. Finker reveals Starro, an alien found by American astronauts that works by assimilating others into its hive mind. He explains that he's been torturing the beast and the people it's assimilated for 30 years, sacrificing men, women and children. Flag is disgusted by these experiments, but is reminded that the US found the beast and had secretly been helping the research before Luna's regime took power. Flag goes to collect a hard drive with evidence of the experiments on and the American involvement, but is soon threatened by Peacemaker, who came down with them to ensure the evidence was destroyed. He also reveals that Amanda Waller gave him orders to do as much, saying if the evidence got out, it would cause an international incident, an outcome unacceptable to the Peacemaker. The two, of course, begin to fight, but an explosion goes off, separating Ratcatcher and Finker from the two in the rubble. Flag and Peacemaker fight for the hard drive, and while Flag nearly wins despite an injury sustained during the explosion, he's eventually stabbed in the heart with a shard of porcelain. The explosion also freed Starro, who tears Finker apart and begins escaping the collapsing structure. Ratcatcher does make her way through the collapsing rubble, but sees Peacemaker kill Flag, so she reacts by taking the hard drive and trying to escape. She fails to get away and is caught by Peacemaker, who is now about to kill her. We get another one of those moments though, with the film cutting to 8 minutes prior, where the rest of the squad secure the upper levels of the building. King Shark ends up in an aquarium filled with colourful little creatures who he endearingly calls his new dumb friends. Polka Dot, Harley, Bloodsport and Milton go to secure an office floor where Polka Dot drops the detonators as Milton is shot by soldiers. Polka Dot takes gruesome revenge and laments his death, but is then surprised by more soldiers, leading to Polka Dot accidentally triggering the detonators and setting off the explosives too early. The structural instability causes Bloodsport to fall through every floor of the structure, where he lands and sees Peacemaker about to kill Ratcatcher. The two have a standoff, which is a cool reflection to the fun version they had at camp earlier on in the film, and it's one which Bloodsport wins, shooting a smaller bullet through Peacemaker's one and impacting him in the neck. Presumably dying, Peacemaker bleeds out and the team regather outside, where Starro assimilates the army that came to ambush them. Waller says that they can leave, saying that since Corto Maltese is hostile to the US now, the Starro attack is good for the situation. The team initially do start to leave, but Bloodsport hesitates because of all of the lives that will potentially be lost and starts heading back to fight the monster. It's a full circle moment for the characters, and despite warnings that she'll detonate the bombs, the team eventually follows suit, and while Waller is about to detonate the devices during a rant, she is knocked out by one of the workers in her office. The team fights Starro in earnest as Bloodsport proves himself as a leader, assigning duties to the team members. King Shark distracts Starro by biting him, while Polka Dot hobbles the creature before unfortunately getting crushed by it. Bloodsport's nearly overwhelmed by the assimilated civilians, but is saved by Ratcatcher calling a massive swarm of rats as he cowers. The swarm occupies Starro enough for Harley to drive the Javelin through his eye, where rats come in to eat away at his insides. Starro speaks through the assimilated Suarez to say he was happier in space before dying. So the squad have defeated Starro, but there is still some small resolutions and answers towards the more mysterious deaths we've seen in the movie. In particular, Waller regains consciousness, and Bloodsport threatens to release the evidence if the team doesn't go free. She relents, saying she knew he could be a leader, and the team end up escaping via a helicopter as Bloodsport's daughter sees his heroism on TV, and Sol Soria gains control of the government, promising democracy. But when it comes to the post-credit scenes, we get to see two characters who survived the events of the film, one being quite predictable and the other being slightly the opposite. The first involves seeing Sean Gunn's Weasel waking up on the beach of Corto Maltese at an unspecified time after the movie's outrageous opening battle. Weasel was assumed to have drowned because he couldn't swim and was dragged to shore by Michael Rooker's Savant, but pronounced dead right before the mass slaughter began. Clearly, however, the bizarre creature is more resilient than anybody thought. He wanders off the beach to do whatever Weasel does, and since it's still nighttime, maybe he'll go straight into the havoc that Starro wrecks on the island and die later. But whatever happens to Weasel after his surprise resurrection, we'll have to wait and see if he comes back in a future DC movie. Maybe he'll be around for much longer in a sequel, but right now, this is all we got of him. But one character we will be seeing again in the worlds of DC is John Cena's Peacemaker, and the post-credit scene is likely a direct setup to his standalone show, coming to HBO Max in January 2022. After revealing himself to be working for Amanda Waller on a cover-up to save America's face, and after the facility holding Starro was destroyed, like Weasel, we thought Peacemaker had met his end. However, it turns out that he was found in the rubble and is in a coma in hospital when John Economos and Amelia Harcourt visit him. The two are aides to Amanda Waller, and since they stopped her killing the rest of the squad, it seems that Waller has assigned them to Peacemaker as a form of revenge. We know that both of these characters will be reprising their roles in the Peacemaker series, which is set to explore the character's origins. It seems as well that it'll involve him on a new mission to save the world, but will Peacemaker also be out for revenge against Bloodsport? It was Bloodsport stopping Peacemaker from killing Ratcatcher 2 that led to a building falling on Peacemaker, so he might bear a grudge. Idris Elba isn't set to be in the TV show, but maybe there's a surprise cameo in the planning. We'll have to see, but James Gunn is clearly building out a continued story for these characters going forward, and it's going to be interesting to see which routes they go in. But that was my video explaining the plot and ending for The Suicide Squad. I thought James Gunn's latest film was actually a pretty surprising one that really just highlights what a studio can pull off if they give their director full creative control to make the film that they pitch. They didn't do this with David Ayer, and it really just shows the level of quality that can be achieved when you put more trust in the filmmakers. We saw a similar incident happen with the Snyder Cut early on this year, getting to see the director's true vision, and it's now resulted in possibly the two best comic book movies of the year so far, with Justice League and The Suicide Squad. James Gunn's film is bold and goes all in on its wacky nature, with the director merging comedic flair and moments of gruesome darkness to fit the characters he's adapting. It's entertaining, thrilling, and delivers on the character arcs it introduces, and I can't wait to see what DC does with these surviving characters going forward. Hopefully, it's also a beacon to see David Ayer's cut come to life on HBO Max in the near future too, as DC are now shaping up numerous types of projects that they can make work. They have standalone films and trilogies with the Batman, DCEU movies with the Suicide Squad, the Flash, and so on, and movies that can be given the light of day on streaming, such as the Snyderverse and of course the Ayer cut. We'll have to see if they adapt these, but I think with all of the options, there's room to successfully cover all different types of superhero property. I'm giving the Suicide Squad a rating of 8.7 out of 10. I hope this did help some of you guys understand the events a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the film, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. I will most likely be doing a video essay and topical videos for the film later this week too, so keep a lookout for whenever I post. For more breakdown videos on all upcoming films in the DCEU, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.